Hey everyone, I'm Etchy and today I'm going to be taking a look at tanking in Skyforge. Now if you know me or you watched some of my videos in the past, you know that I really enjoy tanking and the tank classes in general. It's kind of like it's a really important role that I feel like doesn't give enough credit. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about tanking in Skyforge with my knight and why I decided to pick it over something like the paladin. Alright, so the knight class works this way. You have a shield and a spear. It looks pretty much like something you see out of 300, and which I really enjoy. Their movements, as far as the charge, it's kind of like the whole Spartan thing, where he won't run directly at the person. He kind of moves left and right while he's charging at the person, kind of waving out in and out of the way of danger. Then the first thing you gotta really learn with tanking is be careful with mobs spawning behind you while you're in a dungeon. For example, in this dungeon there are parts where mobs kind of have a delayed spawn, so sometimes I'll go out there and I'll start charging at the enemy and I won't realize that the area that I ran over was kind of like a trap area, where if you walk over that area, mobs spawn from the ground and they'll start attacking you. See, if you don't start generating threat on them, they'll start going towards the more squishy of the characters that are running with you, that also kind of pull aggro because of the high damage threat that they bring. Now the knight, they have two specific stances. They have their tank stance, stance that generates a lot more threat, and then they have their kind of what I like to call their berserker stance, that they attack a lot faster and their range is increased, but they don't really generate enough threat as in the tank stance does. Alright, so when you start out, you want to start out in your attack stance, and that's when you want to rush at the person and try to get that knockback on your shield with them. Now, to get your knockback on them, I like to just be right on top of the person. That way it guarantees a knockback. Don't try to stop short of the person, because you won't always get that shield bash at the end there. It's a really small range, so the best way to do it is just to go right for the healer or the high attack person. Preferably you want to go for the healer first and aggro the high attack person if the mobs are separated, because some packs they do have kind of the healer and the attack. That's what you're going to see in a lot of packs. Okay, the reason why I decided to go with the knight versus the paladin is because the knight can generate threat on enemies that are further away from him without kind of breaking that chain of threat that he's building up with the main boss. For example, if you are fighting a big boss and the boss spawns a wave around you, but you can't really lose the aggro on the main boss, but one of your allies you notice are going down. So you want to just throw a spear. A spear generates a high amount of threat on it, and that'll at least get it the enemy targeted on you and him moving towards you for a little bit. So right after that, you want to switch to your number 3 and use that 3 ability, which will generate threat on everyone around you, and you'll see a nice little bubble that shows your area of threat that you are generating around yourself, and it'll force the person to attack you for 6 seconds while you're casting it and 6 seconds after it's done, which is 12 seconds of guaranteed threat generation. And that's 12 seconds of your allies being able to go grab some healing orbs and whatever else that you may have to do. Okay, so one of the things you gotta really know for just tanking in general in this game is that you can't just really stand there and be the punching bag. I tried that. It's not like WoW, or I don't want to punch on WoW because I think it's a great game, but it's not like something like a tab targeting game that really lets you stand there and focus more on your skill bar instead of what's going on around you. In this game, you really gotta use that those dodge charges that you get every once in a while to move around and dodge out of the big skill attacks. Don't worry, you'll be able to hold your aggro by throwing spears at the main boss or what have you that will be attacking you. Okay, so that's the first thing you gotta really know. Second thing is that when you're taking a boss or something like this, make sure to pull it. Make sure that the boss or whatever is dealing the highest amount of damage, make sure that they're facing away from your party so your party can attack safely on their backside, and that way there's a clear indication of who exactly has the aggro. Because if you're facing away from your allies and if you have the enemy facing away from your allies, you can tell that you're the one generating the threat, because as soon as they turn around, you know, hey, I'm starting to lose my threat. It's time for me to pull more threat on this boss. Okay, so some of the mechanics in Skyforge can kind of be very penalizing for the newbie tank. For instance, this particular part that I'm playing right now, the boss borrows himself in ground, spawns a lot of mobs, and then comes back later on with more health or fully healed up. Now at first I didn't really realize that this is something that you had to interrupt, but as you can see, we had burned him down a little bit, but with this boss, he spawns again with full health and right after he comes back from being borrowed. So that's something that I have to work for in the future, and something to take into account. So make sure when boss is going to go into his heal up stance, like a lot of different bosses do have in this game, it's really big and telegraphed, and a good way to stop him from doing that is with your number 3 skill. So what I like to do here, since you only get some little mobs and it's easy to hold threat, just using some of your auto attacks and your bird, which is on your number 2 skill, and it doesn't use up a whole lot of your resources. What I like to do is just use that number 3 skill right when he's about to borrow, and that forces him to attack you, and it stops his animation from him going into the ground. Alright, so another thing that you would have to look for is your orbs. Remember that there are healing orbs falling all over the place. If you do see orbs, I wouldn't get it until you're at least 30 to 25% down, because as a tank knight, or just about any tank in this game, you can take a whole lot of damage when you're in your tank form than one of your allies. So your 25 to 30% health will last a lot longer than their 75 to 50% health. If you go below 25%, and I would just focus on getting the next orb, ask for the orb. But if the party's completely low, including you, I would say prioritize yourself getting the healing potion and generating more, just trying to generate as much threat as possible to mitigate your allies from being taken out. Alright, so right here I did something a little bit wrong, is that I charged into the enemies, but then I ran past the initial enemies that were in front of me. What I tried to do there was I tried to just go for the highest damage person in the group and start trying to burn them down first. But what I had ended up doing was that I charged past the person and didn't use my number 3 skill to pull them in. Alright, and something you should know about this dungeon in particular when facing the higher level boss that comes towards the end is that those white hands are good and the purple hands are bad, pretty much. The boss at the end of this dungeon right here that I'm fighting in, I believe it's called Cairo. I'll double check that and get back to you. But this boss right here can be pretty tough, the last boss, because he doesn't spawn any showable healing orbs around, and it's a really long drawn out fight, and if you're not really careful about his big smash attack, and you can kind of get caught off guard by it. So what you want to do is you want to hit those white hands as much as possible, and that brings up more health for you and your party, and just avoid the purple ones that do the damage to you. Another thing I would like to touch on is what makes the Knight one of my favorite tanking classes in this game and in a lot of other games. So far it's pretty much my favorite one because of the two stances you have to switch in and out between them, which makes it kind of a lot more, it makes it a very risk versus reward type deal. Okay, what I mean by this is in your tanking stance, although you take the 25% less damage, you also generate resources a lot less effectively as you would if you were in your attack stance. And also, like, attacking generates some of your resource over time. So what you want to do is you want to switch in and out between your attack stance and your defense stance. So what I like to do for this is I like to just start off the battle if I'm going up against a big mob like a boss, and I just like to start off in my defense stance and just charge in there and try to generate as much threat as possible. Once I do this, I'll burn down to about 50% of my resource, or 30 to 50% of my resource. I'll burn down that, and then I will start to switch to my attack stance and try to generate even more resource a lot faster. You don't really have to be in this stance very long for it to generate your resource, as for you to see your resource generating it again pretty quickly. So just try to remember when you're in your attack stance that you can't take as much damage as you can without it. This one boss fight that I'm fighting right here seems pretty easy, but that's because I have two people supporting me with shields and buffs, so I'm able to take a lot more damage than I would be normally. If you see this dungeon with some squishy, just straight DPS people, then it's just a total nightmare, and the support classes really do make a difference. So one final thing that I would like to touch on before I end this video is that what happens when there's no health potions around and everybody in your party is low and you're about to die. So even when you're about to die, there's no good time for you to actually basically sit down and die. What you have to do at this time is just to try to tank as much damage as possible so that your squishies can burn down the boss quickly and without anybody dying. So even if you do die, it's not the end of the world if you tanked up enough damage so that everyone else can finish it. Until next time, I'm Etchy, and I will see you all again.